why are you excited for Ramadan? And based on your answer to this question, it can reveal to you that you either forgot the true essence of Ramadan, the true purpose of Ramadan, or maybe you never even knew it in the first place. Now, when you think about Ramadan vibes, the atmosphere of Ramadan, you think about breaking your fast with your family, you think about the amazing food, planning outings with your friends, perhaps you think about the decorations, staying up late at night for Taraweeh or Qiyam al-Layl with your friends and family or people at the masjid. And there's no doubt that these are all incredible things that are adding to the experience of Ramadan. And just like we see other people, celebrate Christmas and Halloween, which we don't, we are acknowledging this important time for us Muslims, and we are excited about it and happy about it. And we are magnifying something that Allah told us is the greatest month of all time, the greatest month in the calendar, which has the greatest night ever, Laylatul Qadr. Insert the problem. When we are excited about Ramadan, only and limited to the vibes and the atmosphere, when we have skipped the foundation or the essence of Ramadan just for all of these other secondary things, which, yes, they do add to the experience, but that's what they are, secondary. Besides fasting being a pillar of Islam, Allah tells us in the Quran why He has prescribed fasting for us. And He says, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you may be mindful of Him. Taqwa. Taqwa is the objective. God mindfulness or God consciousness. So now when someone comes to you and asks you, why do you fast Ramadan? You know better than to say that we fast so we can feel bad for the poor who don't have access to eat. And I'm sure this is one of the secondary, minor wisdoms behind fasting, but it is far from the true purpose of why Allah told us why to fast in the first place. Now, on a surface level, it makes sense that fasting is related to taqwa because you can technically break your fast anytime, no one would know. You could be fasting, wanting the compliments of people or for someone to say, mashallah, look at this person, he's doing this, this, and that. And so, if you're doing it sincerely, with a pure intention, wanting no praise in a sense or no compliments except from Allah, then you are showing a display of taqwa, a display of being conscious of God and conscious of Him watching you. And some people will limit the taqwa just to the fasting, and they will continue outside of it bad habits and minor and major sins, or perhaps they will wait until iftar so they can do these things like smoking and vaping or doing some filthy, disgusting activity alone late at night without the intention of even wanting to stop, without that shame. Or some people will take the whole month as a break from a certain sin and they will plan ahead to come back to it. So, did you really gain the true lesson of Ramadan? Did you gain that trait of having taqwa in your life, not just in the fasting? Now, that's the first group of people. I would say then there's a second group, which is a little in the better direction. It's not to do with sinning exactly, but it's to do with wasting so much time. This is where the only time you get up and do something in Ramadan is when it involves social activity, when it involves entertainment, pleasure, and it doesn't necessarily have to be haram. It's just that these are things you'll only do because you have other people doing it with you, and so it feels more fun that way. Now let's just pause here so I can ask you a question so that you can reflect on yourself. Obviously, to what I just said, there's a halal and haram side of these fun activities and entertainment, right? And in Ramadan, you have to go out with your family, you have to eat together with your friends, you have to do these things, you just have to, right? It's Ramadan. But with these things, are you able to then dedicate a time for yourself where you can just create a memory between you and Allah and no one else watching? Where you can sit down and read the Quran in silence for 30 minutes, an hour, enjoy the recitation, enjoy listening to the recitation, get up for Qiyam when no one is watching you, and pray with khushu'ah, and perhaps while you're tearing up or you're really feeling and being affected by the verses, and just feeling not the vibes, but the spirituality. That is the goal of this video. If you are opening the Quran and you are getting bored from reading after just 5 minutes, right? Then that is what you have to work on from now, before Ramadan, so you can do it in Ramadan and keep the habit after Ramadan. A lot of things are so easy to do when we have a group doing them. We are social beings. It makes sense. And actually, that's why one of the main wisdoms of Taraweeh prayer is that this group of people is helping you to have khushu' and it's encouraging you to go and pray something like Taraweeh. But we need to work on that connection when we are alone and it's just us and Allah. Are you able to make an amazing memory and have an amazing time and have an impactful time by just being alone with Allah? Or does it have to be that every single time you get up and do something, an activity, a ibadah, some kind of fun, that it has to be with people, with their company, and being seen by them? Now, when you understand that taqwa is not just limited to your fasting, then you also carry yourself out better in your entire life. Think about someone that's swearing and gossiping even though they're fasting, right? And they will tell you technically these things they don't break your fast. And yes, technically they don't. But first of all, the amount of deeds that you're going to get from Ramadan are just going to be less and less. You're going to get more and more sins. And how can you ever guarantee that a ibadah, that a worship is going to be accepted by Allah? This is a level that not even the Sahaba reached, where they are sure that Allah is going to accept their worship. If anything, they worry about their worships being accepted by Allah. And so, if you're fasting, but at the same time you're doing all of these sins, then that is the exact opposite of a display of taqwa. And think about Ramadan, it's just 1 month in a year. What lessons can you learn from that year that can then be applied to the next 11 months? Because if you are going to carry on with bad habits and bad activities in Ramadan, then imagine how much worse you'll be outside of it. A really good analogy for this idea is something I shared in the previous video, where I said that the Quran is not just a book of deeds. So the primary goal is not just to read it and get deeds. Allah says that He sent this book down for us so we can ponder its verses and extract lessons from it. And that same way, fasting is not just for the deeds of fasting, although that is something, incredible that we can't even comprehend. It is also for the lessons and the attributes like taqwa that we can extract from it and then carry on throughout Ramadan and after Ramadan. So to end the video, I ask you again to reflect on, do you understand the meaning and the purpose of Ramadan? Are you acting in a way that is God conscious or people conscious? Are you able to sit down and make a memory between yourself and Allah even when no one is watching? Are you able to enjoy that? Are you able to crave to be in that moment again? Are you able to spend your time in Ramadan with things that are highly beneficial, rather than spending more time on Ramadan TV shows than you do reading Quran and praying? And if we can't answer these questions properly, what we get are people who sin shamelessly during their fasts, after they break their fasts. After Ramadan, they plan to come back to it. SubhanAllah, they break their fasts with their boyfriends and girlfriends, or in these mixed gatherings and parties. Even if they're not doing any sins in specific, as I said, they are still wasting so much time. So I ask Allah to make us, first of all, reach Ramadan and to make us actually make the most of it. Allahumma a'anni ala dhikrika wa shukrika wa husni ibadatik. Ya Allah, I ask you to help me in remembering you and in thanking you and in having ihsan in my ibadah, especially in Ramadan. And I ask Allah to do the same for all of you. And stay tuned for more Ramadan videos, inshaAllah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.